Right, well, I'm Rob Value. What I want to talk about today is falsifiability, and this is a very important concept when you're trying to learn things about reality, which is quite an important thing to do. So if you come up with an idea of something you think you know about reality, you say, I've been trying some things and this is what I think I know. So say, for example, I've modelled throwing a tennis ball and I've said if I throw it roughly like this, according to my model, it's going to land round about over here somewhere. Okay. And then the criteria is that if it lands fairly near that, that's good evidence my model is quite good. If it lands somewhere totally different, then that would falsify it. It would say, there's something very badly wrong with my model. So when I throw it, I'm doing a test, and my test is going to determine whether this is the sort of reality where my model is right, or this is the sort of reality where it isn't. So I'm saying, am I dealing with the correct reality for my model here? Because there could be a different reality where your model is right, but if it isn't this one, it's not going to be very much use. So that's what it means. Falsifiability means you've got some sort of way of distinguishing what things would be like if your statement was, or your idea was true, what things would be like if it wasn't true. And this is very important, because if you don't have that, if you can't tell the difference between a reality where your idea is true and when it isn't true, you can't ever learn anything about it. All you're doing then is just assuming it's true, because you've got no reason to think it's true or to think it's false necessarily. You can't have any idea about it. And so then that begs the question of why you come up with that idea in the first place. Where did you get it from? If things would be exactly the same if it was false, then your idea isn't worth anything. It doesn't tell us anything. All of the rest of the models, everything we know, will work perfectly well whether what you're saying is true or false. So it's irrelevant. It doesn't make any difference at all. So it's very important. You need to separate these two. I mean, for example, here's something that's not falsifiable and therefore it's useless. So someone will say, prayers get answered. Okay. So someone's listening to my prayers and they're going to answer them. And you go, right, well, how are you going to test that? How are you going to determine whether this is the kind of reality where that's true or the kind of reality that it's false? And then someone might say, well, I'll do a prayer. If it gets answered, then that was if the thing I asked for happens, that was the prayer being answered. If a thing I asked for doesn't happen, then obviously the person who's asking has decided not to do it. But they've still answered my prayer, but the answer is no. Okay, so there's no failure criteria. That's the problem, see? So in a reality where your thing is true, it's going to be exactly the same as if it wasn't true. So if you were just speaking to no one and nothing was happening, it would be exactly the same as if what you were saying was true. So you're just making an assumption. You've made up a story. Maybe it's true, but we've got no reason to think it's true, because we've got no way of separating it from something completely meaningless. Another more extreme example could be that everything that exists has got this tiny little bit of special invisible jelly, and every atom has just got a tiny little bit to the left of it. And you can't detect it in any way, shape or form, but it's there. So, well, how would you tell the difference between whether that's true or whether it isn't true? Well, I've just described it in such a way that you can't tell the difference. So even if it was true, things would seem exactly the same. Now, I mean, there's different ways of looking at falsifiability. You could have things which you can say could never be proved wrong, or it could be a matter of can't prove it wrong with what we know already, or just don't have the technology or the equipment or whatever to be able to test it. So, just speaking from a practical point of view, if you want your claim to mean something, it has to be testable within what we've got. We have to be able to test it, because if we can't, it's useless. So It may be that in the future we can test your claim, but if you've got no reason to think it's true at the moment based on what we have got, all you're doing is telling a story about what might be true, and there's absolutely no way to tell. So it makes no difference whether it's true or not. You can't prove it's not true, but then the opposite, that it's false, you can't prove it isn't false either. Because every unfalsifiable claim, the opposite, the contradiction, is also unfalsifiable. So if you're saying it's reasonable to believe them, that means you're believing both the statement and the opposite of the statement, because they're both unfalsifiable, and obviously they can't both be true, so how do you know which one to pick? Well, I'm a pragmatist. Ultimately, I just do what works. You know, we're here, we try our best, we see what works and we do it. So if you've got something where you can't tell if it's true or false and it makes no difference to anything, what do? You forget about it. It's of no use. Until you've got any way to actually investigate it, forget about it. Is there this little bit of Jenny there? Forget about it, doesn't matter. Just carry on like it isn't there. You know, our prayers being listened to, well, if it makes no difference if they're being listened to or not, and we haven't got any way of investigating, it doesn't make any difference, ignore it, carry on. Until we've got such time, until you can come up with a test and show me how it would be different, an actual falsifiable criteria, then you're just making up stories. See? Right, well, I've been Rob Value. I am Rob Value and I will continue to be Rob Value. Thanks for watching.